About these after-dinner chats, well, the conversation started at dinner parties that I hosted first in Sydney, in Singapore, in Shanghai, Dubai, and now London, basically wherever I'm working. Dinners are always fun, sometimes useful, and for me, it's been a way over the years to get to know some fabulous people who are always a little bit senior, a little bit fun, and a little bit smarter, brighter, shinier than most. Dilip Shukla and I met when we overlapped at a DE&I-focused ad network and programmatic sales house. I love what he's up to with his business reset, and he always talks about the power of emotion and how his team reset measures emotions to see when people are truly open to brands. Dilip's got a charming outlook, an enthusiasm for business in general and Adland in particular. See if you agree after this chat.
This episode is brought to you by jobsandadtech.com, the only jobs board dedicated to digital media and the ad tech industry. If you're hiring now, use promo code JWPOD, JWPOD, for a 10% discount on any package. Jobsandadtech.com, it's where ad techers go to find their next role.
Dilip, hello. I'm going to launch straight in, if I may. I'm going to ask you, what's caught your eye in the news this week and why?
Well, I'm seeing an article on a young lady, age of 73, Ginny McCall. In her 60s, she was diagnosed with osteopenia, which is pre-osteoporosis. And she immediately decided to take the action of getting on the pull-up bar and doing pull-ups. And so I was just really thought that was a great attitude, charge at life. Now she is competing in, I think at the age of 73, competing in American Ninja Warrior. So come on, right? But I also like a particular quote that she made. I've written it down, so I don't want to get it wrong and do her an injustice. So quote is, and I think this will apply to some of the discussion that we're going to have, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. So yeah, I like that a lot. Well done.
Love that. Awesome. I really like that, and I look forward to seeing how that's going to weave into this conversation as we go forwards. And perhaps you can help bring that into the conversation as to what you're up to at the moment and how your business and your time is spent helping people. And using my words, not yours, getting ripped off less.
Well, I mean, I've been in advertising for over 30 years. Specifically around the area of technology and media, but creative planning, this kind of stuff, working at agencies. But I've always really gone to the places where it's been about trying to understand people and human beings better, and about how to communicate, and about what is a story, why is someone interested or not. So I think we get ripped off and misguided in the industry because, especially at the media end, right? So it happens a bit less at the creative end, I think. But because we are focused on things like CPM, click-through rates, even things that this might be a bit controversial, right? Attention, right? And I think all of those end up on their own in isolation as bad incentives for understanding human beings. What we're doing in advertising is we're trying to get people interested. We're trying to create demand for our brands and for our products. We're trying to inspire people, excite them, motivate them. And that is about, the question we don't ask ourselves enough in advertising is why. We see the what, and all that the companies with their big data factories have got loads of what in there, but nothing about why. And the why is it's the stories you tell yourself about your life. It's the emotions and feelings that arise out of that. And actually, those are all part of really well-established psychological models that we're at Reset Digital are enacting in the space of programmatic, in the space of social, in the space of TV, to understand why someone's open to communication.
I'm just going to interrupt you there and say, are you going to take the camera and pan around to the whiteboard next to you where you've got your circles and the Simon Sinek whole story of start with why up on the wall up there?
Exactly. And over here is model 1 with 65 emotions. And yeah. But the interesting thing is, okay, that technology has been, there are various things about technology. We shouldn't believe blindly in technology, but one of the things it's been really good at just recently It's helping to understand where and when a person feels what. And that tells you why they're going to be interested in your advertising. So I think it's a really interesting time for where we're going to go with communication. You get ripped off when you're measuring things that are wrong, and when you don't know why you're doing something, or just leaving it to the machine.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, you've got to have the clarity and seeing what's working and what's not working, and measuring the right things, and not necessarily the things that other people have been. Years ago we were told we should be measuring clicks,
yeah.
and then no CFO ever wanted a click. They didn't care about the click. It wasn't what was going to make them. It wasn't the metrics they were measuring. So, what is Reset doing right now to help people change the way they look at things, so that the things they look at change, to use that quote you gave to me a minute ago?
Yeah, so we're starting with this point that says, like, try and understand the human being in their entirety. So of course, the things like whether a person clicks on something is something that they do, whether they buy something, it's something they do, what they search for, it's something that they do. But why do they do what they do? What we're doing is measuring those emotions and feelings in media in a dynamic way, not just in media, but in social and many areas. That tells you, well, it tells you not just what creative messages that person is open to, and when they're open to it, and where. It also tells you how you can stack up against your competitors in the right way to find that mind space that you want to reach with the people that you're speaking to. It's a very human kind of way of understanding people. And so what we're doing with that is we're working with brands like BMW, Paco Rabanne, Carolina Herrera, Ford. We're doing some work with P&G, which is really interesting stuff coming out of that. And we're just improving business results, right? In the end, it just improves the business results. You track the mind space, you refer that through to what business results are being achieved. And we've got really great case histories coming through on that now. We've got a whole number of major brands. So it's an exciting thing. We're kind of doing it in the programmatic space, but it extends into stuff that is like, okay, what about mind states for a brand like GM, and who are their purchasers and why are they interested, and how does that stack up against competition? The really interesting thing is it really drives what a creative approach is and what a media approach is, all the way down to implementation and great results. So it's exciting.
Those brands you mentioned have got big agencies doing their buying.
Yep.
How do you work hand in hand with the big agencies that are using other metrics, and you come and say, no, not those metrics. We want to change the way you look at things, so the things you look at are changing. How do you get into the agency and tell them?
I think it's quite an exciting cooperative process. Okay, so we're saying change what you look at. We're saying don't discard what you're already looking at. Just add this information into your picture. And equally add these measures into your picture, so that you can start to achieve and understand something that is more about what you're trying to do. So that a person that runs a brand, so a person that runs a creative team, as well as a person that runs a business, can say, now you're speaking my language. I've got people to persuade out there. I've got people to inspire out there and to connect with. And you're going to talk to me about click-through rates. Yeah, click-through rates, they're kind of interesting, but what, in isolation? So yeah, it's great. Actually, unifying media and creative, going into the places of strategy, talking about where a brand belongs in media versus another brand, and how you make those decisions of exactly which publication or which platform works better for you, is a great discussion to have with someone at an agency. So we're having a good time with it.
Bringing creative and media together is an age-old pipe dream. Some agencies are doing it really well. Some are really happy being very siloed. And what was the line we used to use? Silos are for farmers and not for marketers. We used to bash together the creative and the media back in the days of the MIG, the Media Innovation Group, when I was in Singapore. And we were saying, I was literally my teams were literally sitting inside the creative agencies, so that we would buy programmatic at the same time as the creative was being produced, so that we could then have live A/B testing. And at that very time, we were going out of our way to make sure that everybody was getting ripped off less, and so that you get more bang for your buck across the board. And one of the things we found was the effectiveness of creative. But at the same time, it's quite hard to get those different people when you're looking at short-term cheap. So if you're looking at cost
Mm.
per acquisition, it's cheaper to have the same creative going out to the same devices at a massive frequency, boring and annoying the hell out of, or annoying the hell out of people. But you get better cost per acquisition at the end of the day. If you marry it together, you get better brand building and better long-term results. But they're harder to measure in our short-term performance-driven world. How do you have that conversation?
Well, I mean, there's going to be situations where one way of thinking does completely apply. I.e., you've got a D2C brand, it's got to do its clicks and it's got to get its, that's a full-on customer acquisition problem. But then you've got other challenges along the way, and most of those are more complicated and more nuanced, right? And so the complications and nuance need some way of measuring and understanding. If the only way you've got of looking at it is your cost per thousand, the fact that you've got a certain kind of viewability, attention, whatever that is, and a click-through rate, you're not going to get far. You have to start measuring and looking at other things. What does it do, though? In this case, actually, some of the results we get are just by sticking the creative in. We're not talking, in some cases, to the brand. We're going like, okay, stick the creative in, we'll get a better result because we know where someone is open to that communication. It's always about whether someone is open to communication. It's always about whether you have a certain set of emotions and feelings so you're open to it. Now, of course, there's media cost. There are all those things that need to be factored in. But the next step of that is, well, where do I belong as a brand in media as opposed to another brand? Well, brands compete in quite subtle emotions. The category is established in quite basic emotions, and they compete in the more subtle and powerful emotions. Okay, so in like delight is a bit different to happiness. Okay, so in there you go to that space. You need the subtlety of media. You need those in-depth conversations out there. It'll send you to a different place than your competitors, and it will give you an advantage. You still have to do the discipline that says, what did it cost me to get there? How many people am I reaching? And all that stuff as well. The world has got its complications. This is just a simplification that says, actually, now I know where my communication really belongs and how I can get competitive advantage from that.
I think that ties in very nicely, the whole competitive advantage over the emotions within there, and then back to the earlier point of creative and media. I mean, we've had dynamic creative optimization, and you can see the results that happen on the back of that. You can see how the attention metrics in conjunction with other metrics are adding value. It's a question of making sure that you've got all the right people at the party from the very beginning. And that's why I'm a big fan of some of the ways we work with some of our clients, where we have all of the creative teams and the media teams and the data teams all together at the beginning of the brief. And it's, it has to be nicely coordinated by all the different teams with all of their different P&Ls and all of their different objectives in life, getting them to work together for one common goal. What's next for Reset Digital?
Well, for us, it is about, we've started in the space of programmatic. I mean, the technology that we've got is used outside of programmatic as well to understand things like influencers. I was talking about GM and mind states, and we're starting to connect that together, because actually, if we want to look forward to a brighter future for advertising, if we believe, like, as we do at Reset, that you need to incorporate something that tells you about why people do what they do, and there's lots of potential for that, lots of different systems. What we have in advertising at the moment, especially in programmatic, actually, is a system-based problem. The system has been set up a certain way that doesn't always achieve exactly what it should do, right? It's going in certain ways. It could be gamed in certain ways. It could be misunderstood and misapplied in certain ways. If you want that system to be better, and actually all systems, you need to do something that unifies creative and media, that allows you to understand media in programmatic in relation to influencer, in relation to social. When you do that and you unify it around this human understanding, then you're starting to build a system that is going to redress a lot of the well, not problems we have, but to create a lot of progress and for the system that we have at the moment. So that's what we're looking forward to. We're building those kinds of things in part and in tech, and it's just a really exciting thing to be involved in.
I look forward to seeing if we can do something together with your business and ours more, because you mentioned a couple of those clients you mentioned are our WPP clients.
Mm.
Right, high five. I've got the high five, quick fire round. I'd like to quiz you. The first one is your hero and why.
Okay, it's going to be Charles Cantu. He's the founder and CEO of Reset Digital, so I'm working there now. So apologies, but honestly, I've been a strategist and a planner for years and been really frustrated by the change in how you understand a person at the strategy level to the inaction at the media level. You're suddenly talking about cost per thousand. Of course, cost per thousands are important and clicks and all that stuff, but you're not talking about the fact that this person believes in certain things and cares about certain things. And why is, well, I remember working with Nike in the sort of mid-90s, and they were like, well, Dilip, you don't understand the difference between us and Adidas. I go, I think I do. They go, yeah, but then why is this media plan talking about a CPM of 1634 men? I'm like, yeah, okay. In that case, I don't, right? And so that's what Charles brought along, something really practical to understand that. And he's been in this space for ages.
And he's the founder of the business that you run on this side of the world.
Correct, yes.
Awesome. I like the circular references there. I was going to say something a little bit cheekier about you, but I won't on recording. I'll tease you about it later. Best decision you made?
Look, my wife is my hero, right?
So you're going to do all the crowd pleasing. Your colleague has set up the company, your wife at home. You are really crowd pleasing today. I'm delighted to hear it. Don't
worry, I'll humiliate myself in a second. Don't worry.
So the next two, your worst decision and then the funniest moment.
Well, I want to put those together. I was at the time I was a marketing director for a .com company called iCollector.com. That company spent something like £40 million in advertising over 2 years. It was proper .com wildness. And I was on the back page of New Media Age, which is one of the industry rags at the time. And I decided, for whatever reasons, in this sort of Q&A, that I was going to imply that I was the savior, the messiah of digital media. And don't ask me why. I thought it was funny, and as time progressed in this article, at the end it said, like, you know, one thing to look out for Dilip Shukla. And at the time, these things were new, right? Webcams. And I said, like, okay, there'll be a webcam in my grave. Be there for my resurrection. It was my idea of what was a funny thing to do, and I still look on it and laugh and think, oh, why don't anyway? It's one of those things. It happened.
I've got so much ammunition on you now after this.
You got me. You totally got me.
One more person. Tell me, give me last item on the agenda. One more person. I'm going to ask you to recommend one more person to spend some time on this podcast. And of course, if they're on the podcast, they need to have come to a dinner. So hopefully they'll be in London at some stage in the near future.
Yeah. So I'm suggesting Dan Hagen. I've known Dan for 30 years, working in various agencies together. He's at Havas now, and he's the global chief data and technology officer. He's a really interesting person. He's an independent thinker. It's not easy to be that, actually, in that level of a business. And a very practical person and a very good person to work with. Always makes you feel part of the team. A good leader, and just a fun person. So that's my recommendation. He's in London pretty often, so yeah.
Fantastic. We'll drop us both a line. I love that.
I will do that.
Dilip, really lovely to catch up with you. Thanks so much for taking the time to have a chat to us today.
Thanks, James. Really appreciate it.